feel like I've lied to you for long enough. My favorite color isn't purple. It's yellow. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I'm going to take you through another section of my coloured bookshelves. Today I'm going to show you every single yellow book that I own on these bookshelves, whether they are ones that I haven't read yet or ones that I have already read and ticked off. There are not so many of them to get through because I have noticed that yellow isn't a very common colour for book covers, but let's see what I've got here. So book number 1 on the shelves is It's Not Me, It's You by Valerie McFarlane. This is one that I haven't read yet. This is going to be my third Valerie McFarlane book. It's quite fitting because it is the third book that she's actually written. And it is one that I am really looking forward to because it has one of my favourite tropes in there, which is moving away and starting your life afresh. So it's about a woman called Delia who has had a disastrous proposal and work wasn't going very well. So she decides to kind of move city, start afresh and completely reevaluate and refocus her life. The job that she moves to is more than a little bit taxing and a little bit confusing. And then she finds new love there. Something that I am really interested in because it's something that happened to me. So I love seeing it in books and seeing how other people have it happen to them too. Next book on the list is one that I've actually read. It is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I read this around the start of this year, maybe the end of last year, start of this year. It's one of the favourite memoirs that I've read recently. So Dolly Alderton is a journalist, a blogger, a radio presenter. She's got kind of like a finger in a lot of pies, people. So this is Dolly's life story, but it also gives you kind of lessons that she's learned about love. She talks about her relationship with alcohol. She talks about her relationship with her parents and her family, with her best friend. And something that I really love about this book is that there are a couple of recipes dotted throughout it. So there is a recipe for mac and cheese, there's one for a birthday cake, there's one for like a dessert, apple and marzipan pizza. Definitely going to be trying out all of those. I feel like this is the perfect book to kind of curl up with a blanket and a hot drink and read it during the autumn because it's so warming and so comforting and it speaks so frankly about love and familial love and relationship love and self-love. It's an absolute uplifter. That said, there are some very taxing and very difficult passages in this book, but overall this is one that I really enjoyed. So the next book on the list is one by an author who I have read time and time again, and it is her newest book, which came out. The ebook was out in May of this year and the physical paperback was out in August, and it is The Minute I Saw You by Paige Toon. So from what I understand of this book, this is about Hannah, who meets a guy called Sonny who has come to her area on holiday. Hannah isn't really a relationship type person, and Sonny isn't looking for something long term because he's only here temporarily, so they decide to have a fling. But before they can even meet up, something happens in Sonny's life and he needs to stick around in the area a bit longer. They decide to just stay friends, but of course, fate happens to intervene. This is one that I just recently got. I got it as a gift from my friend Paige, not Paige Toon. And it is one that I am genuinely really looking forward to. Any Paige Toon books that I've read recently, I have absolutely, utterly loved. So I know that this is going to keep the phrase going. The next book on the list is another kind of recent purchase, and it is by one of Ireland's best loved sons. And this is the second book of his that I'm going to read, the second fiction books of his that I'm going to read. He has got a couple of like memoirs and autobiographies out recently, but this is the second book of his that is a fiction work that I'm going to read, and it is A Keeper by Graham Norton. So this book is about Elizabeth, who comes back to Ireland after the death of her mother to kind of close up the house, basically, to just get rid of all of her stuff, sell the house on, all that kind of admin that you have to do when a family member passes away. But she discovers a bunch of letters that are like 40 years old, and they have like a kind of a story about them, and she sets out to kind of discover what the story is and why it's relevant to her mother, why it's relevant to the area where her mother lived and where she grew up. It's one that I have seen a couple of bits around. It's one that I haven't really seen around, but I know that Graham Norton is a great writer because I read Home and absolutely loved it. So I have very high hopes for this one. The next book on the list is another one that I have to read. And it's the second book of hers that I'm going to read. It is Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I have seen Ross from the Royal Bookshelf read this recently and he absolutely, utterly loved it. So that is definitely a spur on for me to read it, because when I see people have read the books and loved them, but the book is already on my shelf, it absolutely bumps it higher up on my TBR. So from what I know about this book, it is about 12 different women who live in London. They have different backgrounds, they have different socioeconomic classes, they have different lives that they lead. And it's kind of a look into their lives, if they intertwine, what their day-to-day lives are like, how they work, how they kind of socialize, that kind of a thing. I have also read Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo, and I really, really enjoyed it, but I have heard that this one is so much better, and that is definitely something that I am into. And so the final book that I'm going to show you is one that I have actually read. It is a debut novel that came out in like late 2019. I think it came out in September, and the second book of it is actually out and sitting on my bookshelf ready for me to read it. It is Filter This by Sophie White. So this is about two different women, Ali and Shelley. Ali is a kind of wannabe Instagram influencer, and she kind of comes up with an idea to fake a pregnancy and get into the mummy blogger kind of a way. That way that she can kind of boost her profile and get her name out there. And then you also have Shelley, who is an Instagram blogger at the moment, and she is a mummy influencer, but her life isn't as perfect as Instagram would have her followers to believe. She has a lot of arguments with her husband, and her life is kind of falling apart from the side. So it kind of takes a look at like what life is like behind the Instagram pictures that we all put up, that it's not 100% like what we put up online. I really, really enjoyed this book, and I know that it ends on a massive cliffhanger, and I know that that's going to be addressed in the next book. I cannot wait to get reading it. So that is every single yellow book that I own at the moment. Any of these books that I haven't read, which one should I start with? Don't forget to like and subscribe, because I have new videos up every week. Now get on out of here.